is Mongo, your friend from SoCal. And yeah, I'm just going to be reading some more Kong versus Tarzan. So, not too much, basically, in the last chapter, chapter 5, we basically we follow some of the more well, we get a little more information here. So not only do they want to get food for Kong, such as vegetables and fruits and such, but they also want to get some live dinosaurs. So hopefully we'll get some dinosaur action here in chapter 6. But that's about all I'll say. I think if I say any more, I'm just going to keep on rambling. But let's get on down to this, folks. Let's get on down. And there we go. We got the little overlay. So, chapter 6. They beached the dory in a little notch of a cove north of the lagoon, out of sight of the village. Although they had enjoyed good relations with the natives, first mate Jack Driscoll did not care to press his luck. No telling when those savages might turn on us. Once it sinks in what we've done, he commented. Oh wow, what do you know? Well, what do you know? We got Moira Kitty down there. Hello, hello. I'm just reading a book. Anyhow, no telling what, no telling when those savages might turn on us once it sinks in what we've done, he commented. Young Jimmy whispered, You don't think they're cannibals, do you? I don't think they're anything of the sort, returned Driscoll. I just don't want to take chances now that we've come this far. Another sailor grunted. This far? Hell's bells, mate. We just barely begun. Think of all those sea miles back to Hoboken with the ship's belly full of slumbering ape flesh. Belay that kind of talk, growled Driscoll. I don't want to hear another word about that big monkey. Thinking about the trip home gives me nightmares as it is. Now we're out to bag a dinosaur. I'm not going to be too particular about what kind. Let's just surround something and be done with it. The surrounding proved more challenging than first imagined. During their sojourn on Skull Mountain Island, they had encountered an endlessly alarming procession of prehistoric monsters, a cavalcade of terror. Some of the creatures they happened upon belonged to no phylum or genus 20th century scientists understood. They knew that the great upright man eaters would be too much for them, so they moved through the jungle brush, seeking game that walked on four legs, not two. Jack Driscoll took the lead, as befitted his rank. In his hands, he clutched a modern rifle, an elephant gun capable of discharging a .577 caliber Nitro Express cartridge. This weapon was not fitted with ordinary shells, however. Every high velocity round was a hollow lead form charged with a modern concoction of knockout chemicals called a mercy bullet. Just going to take a drink here, folks. A little drink of water. Hopefully, you're all having a good evening wherever you may be. And yeah, let us carry on. A professional hunter had developed them a few years ago to bag big game, specifically mountain gorillas. When fired into the meat of the animal's muscle, the powerful shell introduced the fast spreading potion through a tiny hypodermic needle fixed at the bullet's otherwise blunt tip. Unconsciousness followed in a matter of minutes. How effective these mercy bullets would be against armored dinosaurs was an open question. Even the stegosaurs and the like had soft bellies. It was just a matter of getting in a good first shot. If that failed, Driscoll also toted a 45 caliber pistol in his cartridge belt. They were moving up a rise. The tropical sun beat down on them mercilessly. Wish I thought to bring along me pith helmet, cracked one sailor. I didn't know you owned one, Driscoll cracked back. I do, but it's not on the ship. It's back in the States. Sure wish I had it now. This sun has me beat. Less talking and more walking, suggested Driscoll. Save your strength, especially if we have to turn tail and run. They soon topped the rise, and the great tangled vastness of Skull Mountain Island lay before them. They had seen enough pterodactyls gliding high on air currents to pay them no particular heed. The shore party's eyes were on the ground and up in the trees. The jungle is a funny place. It is packed full of life, teeming with activity, but even a careful observer would miss much of it, for a great deal took place out of sight. Driscoll lifted a pair of field glasses and was searching for movement, flashes of color, unusual eyes. A sultry breeze made the crowns of the myriad trees quiver and tremble. Everywhere bustled with movement, but no signs of crawling life. Descending, they pressed into the valley. Here and there stood ancient trees blasted by lightning bolts, alive with tropical termites devouring the punky wood. Jimmy laughed. Maybe Kong likes bugs. We should scoop up a bushelful. No one commented. They were too busy being wary. How long this stretch of jungle had thrived was anyone's guess, but it was clear that the natives never made any attempt to clear it or even police it of fallen trees. Where saplings fell, they simply deteriorated. Trees toppled in their advanced age, and so thick was the rainforest, some of the stout tree boles never quite fell to earth, but instead hung up in the sturdier branches of the surrounding healthy trees. They worked around these knots of little forests, picking paths possibly no civilized man had ever trod. You'd think we would have happened upon something by now, Jimmy remarked. Or something would happen upon us, another mariner said gravely. I don't fancy being eaten for my troubles, muttered a third. What did I tell you, mudhens, about talking out of turn? Barked Driscoll. Voices fell silent, mouths sealed, and men breathed the humid air through their nostrils in an irregular way that signaled an increasing fatigue. The jungle was hard on these seamen who were accustomed to the flat decks of a freighter and the reassuring pavement of modern cities. Working through close packed trees, blazing a trail, their eyes searched the branches of the forest canopy above, as well as the way all around. They missed little, but encountered nothing of consequence. When the sailor bringing up the rear gave a wild jump and let out a screech, everyone turned, half expecting to see him wrapped in the coils of a constrictor snake. Instead, the man had dropped his rifle and was slapping at his arms in panic. Rushing up to him, Driscoll demanded, What's eating you? The sailor was tugging at something on one arm, and the mate seized it, slapping the other's free hand away. Blister me, Driscoll growled. It's only a leech. Get it off me. Smoking was forbidden by the shore party because the smell of tobacco was sure to draw unwanted attention. But Driscoll pulled out a cigarette lighter, snapped at it twice, then applied the gaseous flame to the fat leech. Curling up in pain, it released its vampiric grip and fell to the ground, blackening as it perished. All right, said Driscoll. Watch out for leeches. Now shake a leg. In time, they came upon an unusual line of mossy hills. These sat in a vale where vivid green moss coated the twisted and gnarled trees and surrounding boulders. There was something uncanny about the way the moss had overtaken the surroundings. The pocket looked impossibly ancient, preternaturally prehistoric. Driscoll called for a halt. His eyes went narrow, and creases corrugated his forehead. What is it? Hissed Jimmy, bright eyes widening in wonder. The first mate said slowly, I'm not exactly sure, but take a gander at those hills. Hills might have been too generous a term. Perhaps they were better described as hillocks. But there were three of them set in an orderly row further up the valley. They were perhaps 25 feet in circumference, more flat than tall, and almost evenly covered in bright green moss. Nothing more grew on them. That was what made suspicion glint in the first mate's searching eyes. Funny, nothing is growing on those little hills, remarked Driscoll. What do you mean, nothing? That's moss. It's sprouting pretty good. Right, but no ferns, no plants, no grass, nothing else, just moss. Seems unnatural to the eyes. Now that it was pointed out to them, the faces of the shore party reflected their first mate's careful suspicion. What do you say, mate? Questioned one man. Investigate or give them a wide berth? Driscoll was a while in answering. He searched the three massed hills with his eyes, looking for he knew not what. Let's push on, he decided at last. There's nothing for us on those hills. The party pushed on, going in the opposite direction of the three strangely symmetrical hills of green moss. The only inkling they had that they were walking into trouble was a humid odor. The smell was rank. It brought Jack Driscoll up short, and he dropped the destructive end of his powerful rifle to waist level, ready, he hoped, for any and everything, come what may. Smells like a water buffalo, a sailor mumbled. Is that right? Muttered Driscoll. When did you ever smell a water buffalo? I think I'm smelling one now. At least I hope that's all that it is. But it was no water buffalo. Out of the bush emerged a head. It was reptilian and wavered low to the ground. At first the thing fooled them. They thought it was some kind of great serpent, an equatorial python, perhaps. It had that general look about it. But then the thing pushed out of the underbrush, and they saw the black mass was a mass of plates like dull cut diamonds, while on either side two mismatched rows of spikes jutted out, discolored by dried blood. Driscoll knew his dinosaurs. They had fascinated him as a child, and he had not forgotten what he'd learned. Ankylosaurus, he burst out. One of his crew, mishearing the word, mumbled, Great, let's ankle out of here. Turning, the first mate barked, Stand your ground, you men. That's an ankylosaurus, an armored dinosaur. It might be exactly what we want. In the act of turning tail, the shore party reversed itself, revolvers jumping out of holsters, even though Driscoll had not given the command to draw weapons. Bringing the rifle stock to a shoulder, Jack Driscoll lined up his sights with the thick forehead of the armored brute. "Steady, men," he said quietly. "Here goes." The powerful rifle kicked once, violently, and even though he stood ready for it, the first mate was almost knocked off his feet. The Nitro Express was no mere sports rifle. Its recoil was 5 times that of a Springfield Army rifle. The scaly plated head of the dinosaur flinched upon the impact of the mercy bullet, flinched, and did not otherwise react. Lowering his rifle, Driscoll watched carefully, and disappointment made his sunburned face grow long and his cheeks hollow. Well, hey there, Bone. Hey there, AFK Bard. Glad to see you guys in the chat. Yeah, I'm just chilling out, ending the day with just a chapter of the book of, King Kong versus Tarzan. And yeah, let's see here. Lowering his rifle, Driscoll watched carefully, and disappointment made his sunburned face grow long and his cheeks hollow. "He ain't keeling over, is he?" a sailor muttered darkly. Driscoll shook his head. "Mercy bullets sometimes take a while to work. The chemical is driven into the bloodstream through the puncture wound and has to take its course." Minutes dragged past, and the ankylosaurus, its dark eyes fixed upon the knot of humans, advanced on awkwardly splayed feet. "Here he comes," Jimmy yelled, dodging wildly. The sound seemed to spook the dinosaur, for its stumpy legs began churning and the ground shook. Soon the thing was charging in their direction. Lifting his rifle again, Driscoll fired twice, but to no avail. The bullet seemed to smash against the armor plate harmlessly. "Retreat, retreat!" No man Jack needed to hear it twice. They turned around and ran for all they were worth. Plunging into the thick part of the jungle, they raced between trees where the creature could not follow, except that to their utter dismay, the ankylosaurus did follow. The creature seemed oblivious to its own girth and size, for it shoved its small head between two tree trunks and, unmindful of the narrow space, tore on. Its bony spiked ribs, its bony spike. Sorry, I got all tongue tied there. Blah, blah, blah. Its bony spiked sides ripped and tore at bark and trunk. Trees groaned in agony. One toppled. One was all that was needed. The determined ankylosaurus continued its pursuit. More than one seaman decided that the top of a tree was safer than solid earth. Young Jimmy managed to gain the crown of a particularly spectacular tree whose twisted limbs were slippery with age accumulated moss. From this perch, he whipped out his revolver, rapidly emptying the cylinder downward. Bullets broke the horny diamond shaped armor, and the creature reacted violently. It possessed a short tail, which ended in a great knob like a primitive mallet. Laying this bulbous protuberance against the standing tree trunk, it began to hammer away violently. The tree shook and shook, and the young sailor, who thought he was safe in its branches, lost his revolver in his scramble to hold on for dear life. He began yelling for help. "Mate, mate, this thing is trying to topple my perch." Hearing this, Driscoll got his scattered men organized, and they moved in the direction of the commotion. It was an unnerving sight, the ankylosaurus hammering at the mossy tree trunk with its natural mace. The thing was enraged, and the ferocity of its tail made every man feel a little sick inside, recognizing that what that knob could do to a human being. Hold this, said Driscoll, handing his rifle to one man. Removing his revolver from his holster, he lined up to the creature's small skull and took careful aim. Squeezing the trigger brought a loud pop and a great cloud of cordite smoke. The ankylosaurus staggered, shot through the brain, but it did not roll over. Driscoll fired again, twice more, and each bullet smashed home. By reputation, dinosaurs are believed to be small brained and on the stupid side. This creature might or might not have fit that description, but even shot through the brain, it was slow to give up its life. It stood its ground, but the lashings of its violent tail slowed, then ceased. The thing quietly folded in its legs and came to rest leaning against a battered tree trunk. From his high perch, the hapless Jimmy called out, "Is it dead or not? Because I ain't coming down until someone certifies that it's a goner." Keeping his weapon handy, Driscoll crept up on the thing, saw that the tail still twitched, but that the armored sides of the creature were heaving with difficulty. Showing more nerve than sense, the first mate walked up to the head, carefully placed the muzzle of his revolver to one temple, and finished by firing a round into it. The dinosaur's head jerked as if whipped. Then all animation seemed to ooze out of it. Holstering his revolver, Driscoll called up hoarsely, "It's done for, Jimmy. Now get down out of that tree." Jimmy must have had some quality in common with a cat, for he found it easier to have ascended the tree than to descend it. He got most of the way down when he ran out of handy branches, took his chances, and simply jumped. He landed hard. Helping him to his feet, Driscoll growled, "You could have broke your legs doing that." Jimmy grinned crookedly. I knew you'd carry me back to the boat if I did anything stupid like that, wouldn't you?" "Dragged you, more likely, by the hair, and it would have." Hey there, Yeti Cast. Nice to see ya. "Dragged you, more likely, by the hair, and it would serve you right." By this time, the shore party had collected itself and were looking to their first mate for instructions. Driscoll studied the dead monster with hands on hips. "This thing is too heavy to haul back to the boat, so the hunt goes on." No crewman looked happy about that, but neither did they complain. Forming up behind the first officer, they made a single file and trudged along in the dusty wake. When they got into the clearer part of the valley floor, Driscoll noticed something peculiar. "Hold up, you men," he hissed, waving them back. The first mate was looking to the west, where the three little hills had loomed. Someone hissed, "What is it? I don't see anything." "Can't you count?" Driscoll snapped. "Sure, up to 20 if I take my shoes off. What of it?" "Take a gander at those three hills." It took a moment to sink in, only because their brains refused what their eyes perceived. "Holy smoke!" blurted Jimmy out in excitement. "There's only two of them now." Alrighty, we're going to continue here. We just finished chapter 6. Now we're going to chapter 7. I will alter the thing here because we got some good stuff here, good tension. So if you're just now tuning in, Jack Driscoll, he's leading a party of sailors onto Skull Island to try and get some dinosaurs. Oh, what do we got here? We got some compliments. I love compliments. It's the best way to end the day with a compliment. Let's see here. Mongo, you would rock radio shows back in the day when they read out stories and advertisements for things like Ovaltine. Drink your Ovaltine, folks. Find out what happens to little orphan Annie by drinking your Ovaltine. Oh, thank you very much. Love the tension. Thank you. Thank you. Definitely can relax to this. All right, I'm going to mute this for a second just so that I can take a drink of water here. Alrighty. There we go. Ooh, I had to do some like little tongue twister things just to kind of try and get my tongue like in the mode. Those good old tongue twisters, right? Red leather, yellow leather. That's not really a tongue twister, but that's just something I remember from school. But there was Betty bought butter to make her bitter butter better, or whatever. Betty bought better butter to make her bitter batter better. Ooh, phew. Try saying that quickly. Ooh, I hate that kind, but I hate getting tongue tied when you read this kind of stuff. So, anyhow, chapter 7. If you're just now tuning in, folks, we just saw what used to be 3 hills has now become 2 hills. So we'll find out what happens in the next chapter of King Kong versus Tarzan. Spell the alphabet with your tongue. Spell the alphabet with your tongue. A, C, D. I guess I don't need to speak when I do that, but that's a way to do it. Low, high. This is perfect for those pulp fiction stories. Yeah, I figure, eventually, I guess I might get a book like that, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, folks. This is a big book here. This is like 88 chapters. But at 10 pages a chapter, it's not too bad. It's not too bad to get through these. But let us continue in the wild adventures of King Kong versus Tarzan. Chapter 7. It was no trick of the jungle, no optical illusion created by the relentlessly beating sun or the tangle of variegated greenery in profusion all around them. Not 20 minutes before, 3 irregular hills had stood in close formation, the sun making their mossy backs vivid. Now there were but 2. It ain't possible, a sailor undertoned. Is it, mate? Jack Driscoll scrutinized the 2 green humps. No, it's not possible, but there it is. But what could have moved a whole hill? Could there be another Kong? Advancing purposefully, Driscoll said steadily, "Let's find out." The others of the shore party swapped amazed expressions, but any hesitancy rising in their chests was shoved down out of sight. First Mate Driscoll strode on unafraid, and they could do no less. Throwing off their reluctance, they crept along after him, every man clutching his sidearm and every trigger finger touching curved steel. As he pushed ahead along the valley floor, Jack Driscoll studied the 2 remaining hillocks. When he got within 100 yards, he lifted his powerful rifle and sent a charge screaming skyward. The recoil brought fresh agony to the arm Kong had manhandled, but he shrugged it off. To the amazement of everyone except the first mate, two mossy humps reared up, exposing stubby legs as thick around as tree stumps. From the northern end of each, strange beak, strange beaked heads emerged, belligerent mouths falling agape. Pistols came up, ready to discharge their deadly contents. Hearing this, Driscoll instructed, "Hold your fire, men. Hold it, I say." The shore party held their fire, but kept their weapons trained on the stirring masses of green. Ponderously, the bulky things revealed themselves, displaying their true nature. Four-clawed legs dug into the dirt, seeking traction, while heavy eyelids opened to reveal dark orbs set in heads that slowly weaved back and forth. Young Jimmy exclaimed, "Turtles! Those monsters are giant turtles!" Driscoll nodded. "Sea turtles from the looks of their flippers. They probably live a long time, maybe centuries, with moss growing on their backs, providing camouflage against the dinosaurs that might otherwise eat them." The things were stupendous in size, although Kong would have dwarfed them. Driscoll studied the rearing reptiles, his brain working fast. Noticing this, a sailor drifted up and said, "You're wearing your scheming face, mate." Driscoll nodded silently. "That I am." "What's hatching up there? Mind telling a fellow sailor man? Those things are amphibious. If we could stampede one of them into the water, I might be able to knock it out with a mercy bullet or three." Hearing this, the others gathered around, faces intrigued. One said, "You think we can winch one aboard the Wanderer? Well, we wouldn't need a raft, would we? The thing is practically a living raft." "It's a mad scheme you're hatching, but it's better than trying to lasso a berserk tyrannosaur." Driscoll began stalking around, keeping his distance from the stirring creatures. Like a surveyor, he attempted to ascertain the weakest and clearest path to the sea. After he was done, he rejoined his men and they fell into low conversation. The plan was simple in design and proved to be uncomplicated in execution. They took up positions to the rear of one of the tortoises, and while out of sight of the great staring heads, they began firing in the air and shouting at the top of their lungs. That did the trick. The two tortoises began to flop their clawed flippers and dig into the dirt, moving with as much alacrity as their immense weight would permit. One went northward, but the other ran toward the sea. Although the word run did not quite capture the locomotion of the amazing reptile. If they had not been aquatic by nature, it would never have worked. But they were amphibious and understood that safety lay in the water. So one reptile made a beeline for shore. Following at a cautious distance, the men reloaded their revolvers and discharged them into the air periodically, which materially contributed to the creature's motivation. "Hey there, Happy Dinosaur. Nice to see you. We're just chilling out. I am reading The Wild Adventures of King Kong versus Tarzan by author Will Murray." And that would be neat. I'm going to have to, I bet that would be nice. Pulp fiction. That might be nice after I finish this book, or even as a nice little break in between. Happy night to you, of course. Alrighty, where were we? Let's see. At last it came to a rocky shelf, struggled to flipper itself along, and became stuck. Find long branches and small saplings, anything you can. We're going to push and pull and lever that thing like old Archimedes. The shore party scattered, came back lugging assortments of timber, and after these were sorted out, they went to work with a firm will. The creature had gotten stuck on the flat underside of its shell, and its flippers were waving and beating helplessly, unable to propel it the last few yards. Its wise eyed head looked out over the rocky edge into the heaving water, but the reptile could not make the plunge. Using their wooden levers, the shore party pushed against the carapace, moving it ahead, sometimes feet, sometimes inches, until the forepart of the turtle poised over open space. Enough pushing, Driscoll ordered. Now it's time to make like Archimedes. Large stones and small boulders were set down as fulcrums, and they applied their crude levers. Digging in under the underside of the shell, they set themselves. His arms wrapped around his own picked pole, Driscoll called out, I'm going to count to three. On the three, everybody give it their all. They waited, and then came the words, 1, 2, 3, heave ho! Every man moved as one. Two poles snapped, one merely splintered, but the combined effort was sufficient. The great helpless tortoise lifted its hindquarters into the air and slid down into the water. Dropping their poles, they raced to the edge of the rocky shelf, peered downward. The round reptile had landed properly right side up and was splashing the water with its flippers, trying to orient itself toward open water. Quick, Driscoll called out. Where's my damn rifle? The co-swain came running with it, and Driscoll took the heavy weapon in hand. Directing the barrel downward, Driscoll sighted on the thing's forehead and fired 3 times in closely spaced succession, agony again numbing one shoulder. Soon the flippers ceased their splashing. They began to wave feebly, ultimately subsiding. As they watched, the great orbs slowly closed, and the thing floated inert. 10 minutes later, they were in the dory, pushed off, and went muttering in the direction of the thing. Their intention was to affix tow lines to the creature's tail, but when they rounded the rocks, the turtle was no longer there. Where is it? Barked the coxswain. Eyes raked the chop, but of course the creature could not have swam very far in such a short time. The dory glided into the gathering waters before the truth dawned on them. There she blows, Jimmy yelled, pointing downwards. Directly below them, visible in the clear waters, floated the thing. Maybe we can rig an anchor, a sailor said half jokingly. Use it like a fish hook. And what will we use for bait? Retorted Driscoll. The sailor shrugged. Search me. I guess we gotta start over, huh? Jack Driscoll took his cap and looked at it as if he wanted to throw it up in the air in sheer frustration. Instead, a light came into his eyes. When I was a kid back home in Connecticut, he said slowly, I'd come across turtles like that one dug into the dirt after they laid their eggs. I'll bet my seaman's papers that if we hike back there, we can harvest a few. Mr. Denham won't like it much, warned Jimmy. No, he won't, snapped Driscoll, replacing his cap. But we'll tell him they're dinosaur eggs. He'll be satisfied with that until they hatch. Maybe we can convince Denham to sit on them himself. Jimmy laughed. Returning to land, they made their way back to the eerie veil of moss. Two of the empty monster turtles Two of the monster turtles had returned to their nests, but one stood empty. Lugging a pair of burlap sacks from the dory, they crept up on the empty earthen crater. The nestling turtles watched them with ancient, expressionless eyes, but made no move to interfere. 16 spotted eggs lay baking in the sun, half covered in dirt, very round, almost like gigantic tennis balls, and just as white. Hastily they excavated these, breaking 3 in the process and cursing the work. Finally, they filled one sack with 6 eggs. That's enough, added Driscoll. No sense pressing our luck. You two lug that sack between you, and if you break one egg between here and the ship, I swear I'll make you drink the yolk raw. I hear drinking raw eggs puts hair on a man's chest, observed young Jimmy. That goes double for you, Jimmy, Driscoll barked. And what would you know about manly hair anyway? You've yet to wear out your first razor blade. Whew, I'm gonna take a drink. Hello to Moira Kitty again. Glad to have you. We are very nearly done with chapter 7 here. The deck crew lining the freighter's rail watched the returning dory with eager eyes. They groaned like a great single beast, then began hurling complaints down toward the first mate. Where's your catch? One jeered. We were hoping for a brontosaurus, another jested. A baby one. Driscoll called up, Quiet, you farmers. Just drop the lines and we'll take care of the rest. And be careful unpacking this sack when it reaches the hold. Contents are fragile. A deck crane was all that was necessary for the hoisting. Once the burlap sack was stabilized, it went up without incident and was swung into the number 1 hold, slick as a whistle. 2 deck workers stood below to capture the burden and unhook it from the hook, whereupon the fragile cargo was stowed amid the plantains and bamboo in the 'tween decks, which would secure it from breakage. The hatch doors were lowered by an electric winch. Carl Denham watched the entire operation with a mixture of emotions tormenting his thick features. He walked up to Driscoll and complained, I ask you to fetch me a dinosaur, and what do you bring back? The biggest dinosaur eggs on record, Driscoll retorted. And if it's not good enough for you, Mr. Denham, you can climb back down into the hold and throw them back into the ocean. It's the best we could do under the circumstances. A lot more manageable than a herd of full-grown ankylosaurs, which we could have which we couldn't have got into the dory anyway. The vehemence of Jack Driscoll's voice seemed to slap down the filmmaker's fighting spirit. He took a step backward and cocked a speculative eye at the mate's glowering features. Denham cracked a crooked grin. Ankylosaur, eh? Driscoll nodded. We ran into a mean specimen. Too mean. Had to kill it. But we scavenged some eggs. If we treat 'em right, they'll hatch out something entertaining. Playmates for Kong. I wonder if Kong likes ankylosaur stew, mused Denham. His laugh was a little ragged, but there was a genuine humor in it. Driscoll, Driscoll did not join him in his mirth. The first mate's eyes went to the hatch doors of hold number 3, and the worry tugging at his sunburned features told that Jack Driscoll was contemplating what slept beneath those flat steel panels. And folks, that's going to be the end of chapter 7 there. Now, today was a pretty good day. I just kind of read 2 chapters. Thank goodness it's not 3 chapters because I'd probably get pretty tired of that. But yeah, hopefully you guys are doing good. Big hello to Mr. Jeremy 5, Russia approved. this is my tired voice, I guess. I don't know. But basically, chapters 6 and 7, Jack Driscoll goes to get some dinosaurs. Unfortunately, he ends up killing one of these dinosaurs, a large and very aggressive ankylosaur, and instead they find several giant sea turtles. In attempting to capture one of these giant sea turtles, they inadvertently scare off one of them, and the other is sedated, but eventually sinks to the bottom of the ocean floor there. So they decide to cut their losses and pick up some giant sea turtle eggs, which I'll say is a little disappointing. I was hoping for some dinosaurs, some more dinosaurs, but it was really cool. I enjoyed the little story, the little details about the ankylosaur. That was pretty neat. Um, yeah, obviously, due to the circumstances of their little adventure, they couldn't really take anything gigantic since they were only in a little rowboat. But yeah, ooh, I miss Ovaltine. Don't drink water, drink some Ovaltine. Well, folks, hopefully you guys are doing good. Let me know down below. I'm going to drink some more water, and I think I'm going to respond to this little text message. Whew, very nice. And of course, in true uh, King Kong fashion, I have a King Kong toy right next to me. Oh, there's a little beep from me plugging in the cam. Let me see if this is going to work here. Oh, wait, just a second here. I just got to show this, You got to show some things here and there. I'm going to tempt the internet gods here. You guys already know I'm so paranoid about the whole camera thing, but we're gonna work through it. Gonna work through it. Let me just turn on some lights here, just to get some light on the situation. Alrighty, maybe too much light. Okay, that's better. I think that's better. Oh, just a second here. How did the Alrighty, folks, prepare yourselves for a sight most sinister and gruesome. Let me see here. Alrighty, and I'm going to turn off the overlay, and here we go. Hopefully, you can see me. Hopefully, if not, well, whatever. It is what it is. But in true King Kong fashion, I have a little King Kong toy here. I got a Kong toy because I figured, hey, why not? This is a very serious Kong face. He's not entertained. He's not amused. But I gotta say, it's a nice way to end the day. And happy night to you, happy dinosaur. Chomp chomp, my brother. Yes, it is. It is. But yeah, love that guy. He is cool. So yeah, I got a King Kong toy right here, and then I got a Godzilla toy. And yeah, they're not quite in scale. I feel like this King Kong could twist off Godzilla's head if he was at that size, that proportion. But anyhow, I think I've tempted the camera gods for long enough. I'm going to turn off the camera. And thank you very much, AFK. It's just a chill thing, chill stream. Oh, and speaking of streams, I just want to make sure to remind you guys that this Sunday, we're going to have a very special little stream here on this channel, and it will be called Ba-ba-da-ba, Movie Nights with Mongo. Guests welcome. Now, this will probably be the last movie night stream of the year, just due to the nature of the month of December. It's going to be a very busy time. A very busy time. I imagine a short, stubbier Kong would punch harder. Yeah. More compact punch. Woohoo. Sounds fun. Very nice. So, yeah, it's going to be a little stream here. Going to have a lot of great people. I think a lot of you guys are actually going to be in that stream. And yeah, it's going to happen November 15th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'd really appreciate seeing all of you guys there. You may have remembered actually, I think yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I think, I had this little stream that I did, Godzilla versus Homelander. So I reviewed the footage, and a lot of the footage looked terrible. So I downloaded the stream, and then I kind of just re-edited a few little things here and there. And by re-edited, I just covered up my face a couple of times just to make it a little more appealing to me, at least. But yeah, I'm just gonna upload that later on tonight, and yeah, this was a really fun stream. And once I get that uploaded, I'll make sure to post that on Twitter, or at least a link to it on Twitter. And yeah, that has been me reading a book. Good night, AFK. Good night, everybody. Good night, Jeremy 5 Russia approved, Mr. Bone. Good night, Happy Dinosaur. Chomp, chomp, my brother. Good night, Moira Kitty. Meow, meow, meow. Good night, Yeti Cast. Yeti, Yeti, Yeti. I don't know what a Yeti makes, what sound they make, but, well, here's to you, Mr. Yeti Cast. Maybe, in the future, I might pick up some Pulp Fiction. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks a bunch, guys, for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Good.